Alright, welcome to part 2 of the spacer plate video. In this video we're going to be dimensioning this drawing. Now when we say dimensioning, basically we are adding all of these measurements that tell us details about the plate. Just drawing the plate isn't enough, because if we want someone to make this plate and we just give them this, well, they know the shape of it, but they don't know what measurements to make. So we need to make sure that they know all these measurements so they don't have to waste time sitting here with a ruler trying to measure everything out. So I'm really picky with how I grade the dimensioning. This isn't really shown in the drawing, but I require all these dimensions to be 1/4 inch from each other and 1/4 inch from the actual drawing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw these what's called annotation lines. We're going to draw these annotation lines that point out what objects in here we're measuring. So we're going to start, basically we're going to make a 1/4 inch border, a double 1/4 inch border all the way around this plate. And then we'll come back and erase the lines we don't need as we do the dimensions. So we need to mark out a 1/4 inch and then another 1/4 inch on all 4 sides of this plate. Now if you're using a scale, there's a real nice easy way to cheat on this one. If you look around, you will find on one side there's a 1/4 inch marked out on one of the sides of the scale. That means that these longer lines here, the every other line, they're each a 1/4 inch apart. So that's a real easy way to measure out a 1/4 inch without having to read all the unnecessary lines. So we're going to go ahead and use that for this part. I'm going to line this up with the edge of my drawing. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to mark out 1/4 inch mark, then another 1/4 inch mark. So you should have something just like that. Bam, bam. If you were to measure it out on your actual scale, it's the same thing, 1/4 inch. So we're going to go through and we're going to do that for all 4 sides. So here's the left side. 1, 2. Bottom. 1, 2. And the top. 1, 2. So you should have these marks all around your drawing. So now I'm going to take my T-square and I'm going to draw out these lines. It's important that your annotation lines are pretty thin. You don't want them too dark because you don't want to confuse them with the object lines. You don't want too many lines that look alike. So we tell the difference. There's a couple different ways to tell the difference. Some drafting you use different colors of lines. In this one we're just using line thickness. So these lighter lines mean, hey, this is a dimension. So we'll go through and draw all these lines, making sure we use the drafting square for the vertical ones. Draw these out. And like I said, we're basically just making a border around this for now. Nothing too special. We'll erase the unnecessary lines later. Okay. One more set on the top. Just going to use the T-square. Alright, so you should basically have a double 1/4 inch border all the way around this drawing. So now we're going to take this side by side and mark out the dimensions we need to. Let's start with the bottom. So if we have a look here, we have 3 dimensions going on here. Even though they're not lined up in the drawing, these two should be lined up together. So let's start on these 2-inch marks right here. We're going to start here. Both of these dimensions start at the same point. So we're going to draw a vertical line here. It's very important that this line does not touch the plate. We want it separate from the plate so we don't think it's a part of the plate. So I'm going to take my drafting square. I'm going to line it up with this edge of the plate not touching the plate. I'm going to go down, and I'm going to go about 1/8 inch past the dimension lines. About that far. So, our starting point is established. Now let's work on this dimension right here. The ending point of this dimension is the center of our circle. So I'm going to line up my drafting square with the center of this circle. Now these lines can actually intersect the plate. That's okay. So I'm going to start at the circle. I'm going to go down. And I'm just going to cross the first line of dimensions, not the second. Just like that. We're crossing the first line, not the second. Now, I need to label this dimension. Even though the computer drawings are in decimals, I want you to write them in fractions, and I want you to label them. So we're going to erase a little part of this dimension line. We're going to label it 2 inches. And then we'll throw some happy little arrows in here. Get the Bob Ross vibes going. Happy little arrows. Just like that. So this dimension's done. We'll clean up these lines later. Let's move on to this dimension right here. This dimension starts at this corner of the plate and it ends at the far edge of this corner. So let's draw those vertical lines right now. We're going to line this up with this corner of the plate. Important not to touch the plate, and we're just going to cross the first dimension line just like that. Now this second vertical line actually ends both of these dimensions. So we can draw this line clear through both sets of dimension lines. So I'm going to line up this drafting square with the very edge. Don't touch the plate. Go clear down. Cross both the lines, just like that. Now I can put my labels in. This dimension is also 2 inches, just like the first one. 2 inches. We'll do some happy little arrows. Okay, now we can work on the long one. But if you notice, we already have the lines done because we did these ones first. So all we have to do on this one is just erase the middle, label it 7.5. Make sure you use fractions, don't use the decimals. Put a label on it, throw some arrows down. That dimension's done. Now we can clean up our extra lines. Anything that doesn't have arrows on it needs to go away. So clear out here on the end, I can get rid of these. I'm not going to erase them all yet because I don't know how much of these lines I need. I'm going to get rid of this middle part of the top line. That needs to go away. So we'll get rid of this. Careful not to erase my dimensions. Goodbye line. And then we need to erase over here. So we're going to erase this line right here. Sorry if the camera's shaking. Alright, bottom line is done. All of that, check. We'll just go ahead and go up and around. We'll go to here now. We have a dimension down here, and we have a dimension that goes from the bottom to the corner. They both start down here on the bottom, so we'll go ahead and draw this line first. Excuse me. I'm going to line my bottom, my T-square up with the bottom. Don't touch the plate. Draw it clear across and cross both lines. Go over about 1/8 of an inch. Just like that. So this horizontal line is done. Let's work on this dimension now. This dimension ends at the top of this notch. So I'm going to line up my T-square with that notch, and I'm going to draw a really short line going across the first line of dimensions. Just like that. Okay, now we can label this. Going to erase a little bit of the middle. The dimension is 2. So So I'll draw 2, label it, throw some happy little arrows in there. That one's done. Now we can focus on this one. We already have the start of it done. Now we need to draw out the end of it. The end of it ends at this corner right here. So I'm going to line up my T-square. And actually, one thing I'm going to do before I do that, I know I don't need this line anymore, so I'm going to erase that so I don't have to fight it when I have a line there. So I'll erase this first, just to make things easier for me down the road. Just like that. Alright, so now I'm going to line up my T-square to that corner. Sorry I keep moving the drawing on you. Line it up to that corner. Draw our line. And there you have it. Now I can erase a little bit of the middle. The dimension is 5 inches. Throw some arrows down. And we can erase all the extra lines. So this whole corner down here can go away. We don't need that anymore. Okay. We'll get rid of the top here as well. All right. Those guys are done. Let's go ahead and move to the top. On the top here we have 2 dimensions. Both of them... Sorry, I thought I heard a noise. Both of them start over here on the far corner. So we're going to draw a vertical line there across both lines. Someone's in the next room doing something. That's what I'm hearing. So we're going to line this up with the far corner. Don't touch the plate. Draw it across both lines. Just like that. Okay, so we have the starting point done. Let's focus on the smaller dimension first. The smaller dimension points to the center of this circle. So we are going to line this up with the center of the circle and draw that vertical line. Go ahead and draw this going up. Remember, if this line is not a part of the dimension, don't cross the dimension line. Only cross the line of the dimension that it refers to. So we don't cross the top line, we just cross the bottom. Going to erase it. The dimension is 4.5 inches. Lay down some arrows. That dimension's done. Now we can work on the next one. Next one starts in the same place, but it ends over here at this guy right here, this corner. So we're going to line up our drafting square with that corner. And actually, again, I'm going to erase this line here because I don't need it. And I don't want to have to erase around it later. So we'll erase that first. Line up our T-square. Line up this drafting square. Go all the way up. A little bit past it. There's our line. The dimension is 6 inches, so we'll erase a little bit of this. Don't feel like you have to stack the numbers on top of each other. The numbers can be anywhere along the annotation line. Put the measurement in, lay down some happy little arrows, clean up the excess. We don't need this anymore. So all that can go away. Make sure you do this lightly because it's hard to erase dark lines completely. You can still see the smudges on mine. I drew it dark so that you could see it on the camera. But when you do your own, don't do them very dark. You're just making more work for yourself later. Oh, we need this one gone too. There we go. All gone. All right. 3 sides down, 1 to go. This one has 3 dimensions, just like the bottom. So We'll start at the bottom actually and work our way up. Both of these dimensions start at this corner. So I'm going to draw that line first. Line up the T-square with the bottom edge. Draw that line. Go about 1/8 of an inch past them. Just like that. I'm going to get rid of this corner here just because it's bugging me. I don't need it anymore, so it can actually go away. Save us some confusion. There we go. It should look like that. Alright, let's work on the inside dimension first. It's 2.5 inches. It ends at the center of our big circle. So let's draw that line. Basically, we're just extending our crosshair whenever we add a circle, or whenever we dimension a circle. Do that. Cross the first line, not the second. Just like that. Erase the middle. The dimension is 2.5. Happy little arrows. That one's done. Let's move on to this one. This one starts at the center of our little circle. So let's draw that line too. Cross the first line, not the second. Just like that. Now you notice in this drawing, oftentimes these lines have little spaces in here. You can do that if you want to. I don't require it. That's up to you. I just wanted to clear that right now. So we have our line here. We see that the dimension ends on the top corner, and actually both of these dimensions end on that top corner. So let's go ahead and draw that line as well. Don't touch the plate. Cross both the lines, just like that. I'm going to get rid of my extra lines here so they're not a nuisance anymore. Hasta la vista lines. Alright, so this is done. Now we can put in our dimension. Erase the middle. The dimension is 1 inch. There you have it. Happy little arrows. Our last dimension is the entire height of the plate. And as you can see, we already have the lines done. So all we need to do is erase a middle, label it to 6 inches, lay down some arrows, and that dimensioning is done. We have one more line to erase. We don't need this middle line in here, so I'm going to get rid of that too, so it spares us some confusion. The less lines you need, the better. And there you have it. One more step to go. We need to label the diameters of these circles. So we're going to draw this straight edge here. This should be horizontal for both of these. I'm going to put a couple of those down. I'm going to save us a little bit of time here. I'm just going to put them both at the same time. Just some short lines there. Another short line here. It doesn't matter exactly where you put these marks. Just so long as those marks point to the right circle. So this one, I'll point it here. And this one, I'll point it here. Arrow, arrow. Okay, these are called leader lines. They lead us to the dimension. So now we need to label our dimensions. Whoop, probably can't see that. We need to label our diameters here, our dimensions. Make sure you start with that diameter symbol. And then you just label the measurement. So this one is 2 inches. This one, 1 inch. Make sure all our lines are gone. All our shavings. And this drawing is done. We can go ahead and remove it from the board. Carefully peel the tape away. Don't rip the paper. Carefully peel our tape away. And there you have it. Pretty simple first drawing. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see how you do on the next few drawings. So thank you for watching.